just wanted to go over a couple things. When it comes to learning how to wrestle or learning anything, you always hear you got to teach to learn better, or something around those lines of you only learn when you teach, something like that. It's very true. As a coach, when I started, I learned so much more by teaching that it was insane to me that I had not started something earlier in my wrestling career as a teacher, a tutor, a coach. I like tutor. I don't have that mantle of coach. It's a lot of responsibility. So coaching is very difficult. But tutoring is what I did when I was a kid, and when I was wrestling, I would help my teammates learn better. But I didn't push it to the level I should have. Now that I'm older, I know that. But one of the keys to my success as a coach, with creating 15 state champions in my first 4 years of coaching, was my willingness to set my ego aside and allow my wrestlers to teach themselves. And that's so hard for coaches. They just can't, because they're a coach, because what they have to say, what they have in here, is what gives them this title. So they have to express it, and they feel like they should be the most knowledgeable person in the room, and the person who always has the last say, and the person whose word is gospel. You're not going to learn. You're not going to learn as fast that way, and your kids aren't going to learn as fast as that. They're not going to learn as fast that way. So what you got to do is you got to allow your kids to teach each other, because in that process, they're going to have to hold themselves accountable to the words that they say, not the words that you say. You're creating self-awareness in these kids, and that's so important. If you teach a kid a double leg and you say, all right, for instance, finish on the knees or go down to the ankle, because you eliminate the power of his hips. If you don't come up to the hip, he can't take advantage of that. Okay, simple, right? But what happens is, you tell the kid, all right, now go teach some of your other teammates this. And he goes over and he starts teaching them. And then he shows them how to come up to the hip. And he doesn't listen to what you say, right? Now, he has to make his words true. He's got to either double down on it and make it work when he sees the kid he just taught do it wrong and get out of position and stuff like that. He's either got to double down and say, go to the hip but do this, or he's going to think, oh, that's right. Coach told me to finish on the knee to eliminate my opponent using his upper body to defend. So maybe I should do that. Maybe I should teach him to do that, because that's where he's messing up. Or maybe I can figure out a way how to finish on the hip and still eliminate my opponent's upper body positioning for defense. So now you've allowed your kid, your student, to assume the teaching role. And now he's being held accountable by his own words. That's huge. We had to do that with one of our kids. He was one of the most physically talented kids we had. He became our 4-time state champion. And what we realized was, sometimes when we said things, he didn't want to listen. He wanted to do it his own way. Even though sometimes, most times, his way was efficient for him, okay? But it wasn't always that way, right? And there was no way of letting him realize that other than allowing him to teach his teammates what he does. Because in that process, he has to come to a self-awareness that will allow him to see the things that he's doing that might not be the best, and how some of the things that we've been saying this whole time can actually benefit him, because he's going to see other kids fail at doing what he's doing, right? So I'd suggest all coaches, and just to set your ego aside, because it runs rampant in athletics, where the coach feels as though he has this position because what he has here and what comes out of his mouth is the most important thing. That gives him value. That gives him that job title as coach. But not necessarily. Not necessarily. You've got to be able to open your mind to new avenues of progress. You cannot have your word as gospel in a wrestling room, because that's going to eliminate any type of unique expression from your students. Your students are only going to hold themselves accountable to your definition of success, your definition of proper technique, this and that, and they're not even going to think for themselves. They're not going to step outside of the definition that you've given them. You know, they've got to be able to create their own philosophy for themselves, and you do that through teaching. You allow your kids to teach each other. Growth, that's how growth occurs. You can be a student your whole life, but the moment you take the reins into your own hands and begin to teach, begin to instruct, begin to try to help other people, that's when you find some type of unique way to express yourself, and you discover something that you might have been doing your whole life and didn't realize why you were doing it, or that you were even doing it at all. But in the process of teaching others how to be like you, or how to get to a level that they want to get to, you discover something about yourself. And that's what you gotta do for your kids. Coaching is very selfless, and the best coaches are the most selfless. You know, I hang out in the jiu-jitsu world a lot, and in jiu-jitsu, everything everybody says as an instructor, a black belt, once you get that black belt, you double down on everything that you believe in. And I've seen it my whole life in the wrestling community. Coaches will tell you, you only shoot double legs this way. There is no other way to do it. And that's so false. And when you do that, when you tell a kid that he can't jump outside of this box, because everything in this box is the only thing that matters, nothing outside of it is worth considering, that's going to kill every creative cell in his body. It really is. He's no longer going to come to practice excited to learn. He's just coming to practice to follow orders and hopefully please you. Get over yourself. Coaches need to get over themselves. It's not about you, man. It's not about you at all. It's all about the kids. It's all about your students reaching new levels of awareness, new levels of commitment. I mean, think about it. The moment a kid begins to take ownership of his wrestling, his commitment level goes to another, just beyond where it used to be. Because when he's taking ownership, he realizes that everything that he does is adding to or taking away from his future success. You want every one of your students, every one of your wrestlers to think like that. To where they don't need you, but they want you. They want your input. When they get stuck, they want your input. They find that that they can't do it alone. That's where you come in. But believing that your word is gospel in the wrestling room, you're not going to get the best out of your wrestlers. You're just not. And it's a tough guy world, wrestling coaches. Well, my boys do it this way. It's just like, come on. I got so sick of that growing up in the South, where coaches telling me I can't wrestle my way. I cannot wrestle this way. If you're going to wrestle for me, you're not going to take shots like that. But I was scoring. And my brother the same way. You cannot wrestle that way. Well, why? I'm winning. What are we after here? You just want me to do what you want to make you look good? No. You're not a coach that people are going to respect. So, do what you want, but if you want success, gear yourself towards that. Right? If you really love your kids, right? You really love your kids. You're a coach, at the athletic banquet at the end of the year, you get teared up. I love these kids, they I learn a lot from them, and they, I think they've learned a lot from me, and I'll give 110%. It's like, come on, get over yourself. If you really loved your kids, you'd be allowing them to teach each other, to grow, to learn from themselves, to make mistakes, and to be happy that they're making mistakes because they're trying. They're stepping outside of their comfort zone. You should have on the wall in your wrestling room, hurry up and fail. Hurry up and fail. It's something Tim Kennedy, UFC, ex-UFC fighter, Special Forces guy, he said, hurry up and fail. And it makes so much sense. Because if you're hurrying up, if you're trying to do something that you're thinking about as fast as you can, right? And it fails, right? Well, then you can move on to something else. You figure out fast. Okay, that didn't work. All right, let's do the opposite of that and figure out if that works. That's what you want. You want your kids to challenge themselves and fail as much as they can, because that's only going to gear them towards what's beneficial and what's going to maximize their effort. Come on. It's very simple. It's very simple. When a baby, if you're a father, right, and your baby's trying to walk, and it's falling all over the place, do you get mad at it? No! You encourage it. Fail more. Try to walk to me. Come over here. You walk. You take like 2 steps backwards, and you're like, all right, come to me. Come to me. And they try, and they're wobbling, and they fall, and then you catch them, and then you get a little further, and like, come on, come to me. You're trying to get them to fail, because in the process of failing, you learn what works and what doesn't. Keep that in mind. And if you're a wrestler, talk amongst your teammates. Be like, hey, look, let's try to help each other out. Let me teach you how to wrestle today, and you teach me tomorrow, or we do something like that. But there should always be some type of teaching at practice between you and your teammates. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. Some of your coaches won't agree. I know. I lived through that. I lived through an era where a high school coach was a pedophile and a child molester, and he was a tyrant. He was a tyrant in the wrestling room, and he only allowed you to wrestle and perform techniques the way he wanted. Now, I wonder why. Don't be like that. And if you have a coach like that, get out. Just get out. That's what we had to do. That's what a lot of kids had to do. Because wrestling's so hard. It's not worth dreading every day. you don't want to dread going to practice because you're not going to learn. You're not going to have fun. So why do that to yourself? Find a coach that's open to new ideas. Find a coach that's not all about himself, thinking that everything he says is the only way you do it. Wrestling is so individual. It's so unique. You know, every few years, some wrestler steps on the scene and he's doing everything the opposite of convention, right? What we're used to, and so everybody begins to copy him, and then somebody comes around, changes it up again, and we copy him. But I bet all his coaches told him not to do it that way. All his coaches were like, that's not going to work against the best guys. They could be right. But if you take that upon yourself to make it work, well, you're going to be an innovator. You're going to innovate things and push buttons and create opportunities for yourself. You could create things that aren't even imaginable right now. Just food for thought. Think about it. Do with it what you want. But you want to learn. You want to get better. Try it out. See if it works for you. All right.